believe a man is supposed to take care of his woman. I don't care how much money your woman make. A man is supposed to have his mindset on taking care of his woman.
Talk. I mean, this may be a bit crude, but I mean, I don't know no other way to say it. I want to talk about booty calls. Hey, what's up? This is RC Blakes, and I'm so glad that you have tuned in today. I have something very exciting that I want to discuss with you today. The 7 signs of a king. You know, I was thinking about this, and I thought, okay, this is a great one to jumpstart the Kingology movement with. I can talk directly to my men, but the reality is this message is as important to women as it is to men, because most women are failing to recognize true kings when they show up. This is why we settle for, or you settle for, clowns and crowns. It's because you don't have a perspective on what a true king looks like. You know, from the very beginning of time, as the Bible dictates, which is my document, God created Adam, the original man, to dominate the earth. God created all of this. He created the garden. He created all of this. And then he says to man, I want you to be king over my creation. All I want you to do is obey me and just follow my rules. That's all I need you to do. And beyond that, I want you to just dominate. Genesis uses the word dominate, dominion, you see, because God intended that the man would rule the earth like God rules the universe, like God rules the heavens. You and I, my brothers, were intended to rule as kings. Now, you know, without going into a complete Sunday school lesson, through the process of time, man disobeyed God and sin entered into the world, and man has been in a posture where he has become more and more depraved and degenerated. And so many of us have fallen from that state of royalty, that kingliness. And so now the mind has to be renewed for the life to be transformed. And so here's, you know, Kingology coming at a generation of men to renew the mind. You know, men today are being broken down, disrespected, and it's now time for the true kings to rise. And there are 7 things that I want to share with you today that play into the making of a king. There's more to it than just these 7 things, but this is what I want to talk about today. Number 1, kings are detected. You may recognize a king by his uncommon character. You may recognize a king by his uncommon character. You know, if you put 100 men in a room and you listen to the conversations and you paid attention, if you were able to observe them for any length of time, you would discover that there were a lot of inequities. There were a lot of things that conflicted, you know, the message that came out of their mouths. Maybe the lifestyle didn't match. And there would be this minority of that group that would have a strong and stable and consistent character. There, my friend, you have identified a king. Kings have uncommon character. Kings are not liars. Kings are not hypocrites. Kings are not clowns. Kings are consistent. If you look in Proverbs 20, verses 6 and 7, it says, most men will proclaim everyone his own goodness, but a faithful man who can find? interesting. He says, everybody's talking about how good they are. But how seldom do we really find a faithful man, a man that is consistent from the inside to the outside, a man whose life privately lines up with his public proclamation. If you're searching for a king, start with his character. Don't worry about his robe and don't worry about his shield and his horse and his sword. Clowns can put that on. You might just have a clown and a crown. But if you want to really identify a king, start with his character. So I say to you, my brothers, and especially my young brothers, building your character is important on this journey to manhood. If you don't have a word, if everything you say has to be second guessed, if your seed, your children, stand on the porch and wait for you and you never show up, and it's 20 years later and you still haven't shown up, there's a character issue. And you may very well say, oh, well, my pops wasn't there. Well, I can't tell you that I feel where you're at with that, because my pops was there. But I will tell you this, my pops did not have a pops. His pops wasn't there. He grew up without his pops. He grew up really even without his mother. And so I asked him one day, I said, how is it that you didn't have a pops and you became such a great pops? And my pops said, well, I just became to you and your brother what I wished my father had been to me. It's a character issue. If you want to identify yourself as a king, kings represent uncommon character. Number two, not going to be long. I know men have short attention spans. Kings have, not only do they have uncommon character, but number two, kings have intellectual depth. Kings have intellectual depth. In other words, kings are thinkers. Clowns are random, but kings are thinkers. They are intentional. And when I say intellectual depth, I'm not talking about education. I'm not talking about how many degrees you have. I'm not talking about that, because some of the biggest fools I know have more letters behind their names than Campbell Soup has in its alphabet soup. But I'm talking about the depth of your thought. I'm talking about kings tap into a dimension of wisdom that common men never, ever realize. When a woman meets a king, listen to this very carefully. When a woman meets a king, she is so enamored by his mind that she never stops to pay attention to his biceps or his triceps. That's an afterthought. She is so moved by his mind. A true king has an intellectual depth that amazes the world, And here's a great illustration, actually. I'll give you two kings that had tremendous depth intellectually, and they're on different sides of the aisle. Dr. King was formally educated, brilliant mind, probably the greatest black mind in history relative to, blending theology and politics and social justice. But then you had Malcolm X, who was not necessarily formally educated, but was equally as brilliant, because the depth of a king's thought life goes to a place that amazes society. Kings are thinkers. I was at the ministry of a man of God, senior to me, that I respect highly. And the greatest compliment he gave me was, "You're a thinker." Kings are thinkers. Kings are the men that when their women have issues and they're struggling with problems, kings don't necessarily provide answers, but they steer the conversation into such a place that the answers unfold. Look, if you look in 1 Kings chapter 10, verses 1 through 7, one of my favorite passages, we see where the Queen of Sheba goes to meet King Solomon. And the Bible says, "And when the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to prove him with hard questions." She came to what? Prove him, test him with hard questions. See, queens ask questions that only kings can answer. So she came to prove him with hard questions, and she came to Jerusalem with a very great train of camels that bear spices and very much gold and precious stones. And when she was come to Solomon, she communed with him of all that was in her heart. And Solomon told her all her questions. There was not anything hid from the king which he told her not. And when the Queen of Sheba had seen all Solomon's wisdom, and the house that he had built, and the meat of his table, and the sitting of his servants, and the attendance of his ministers, and their apparel, and his cupbearers, and his ascent by which he went up unto the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. She said to the king, "It was a true report that I heard in mine own land of thy acts and of thy wisdom, howbeit I believed not the words till I came. And mine eyes had seen it, and behold, the half was not told me. Thy wisdom and prosperity exceeded the fame which I heard." Kings have intellectual depth. They think on a different level. And it shows up in their conversation. It shows up in the way they approach life and the way they do things. For instance, kings are sticklers for excellence. Kings are not perfectionists because they would understand that that is unfruitful and impossible. There's no such thing as perfection. But kings are sticklers for excellence because their minds demand it. And the things that average men look over, the things that average men can tolerate, kings have to adjust. It was said, I heard someone say, I forget who said it, small things trouble great minds, because kings have intellectual depth. Number 3, you can identify a king by the quality of his company. Kings don't run with clowns. Kings do not run with clowns. You can identify a king by the quality of his company. Listen to what the Bible says in Psalms 1, verses 1 through 3. It says, "Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. Blessed is the man that walketh not." Kings have small circles because kings demand exceptional quality. You don't see kings running in packs. You can identify a king by the quality of his company. If you go back to that Proverbs 31 woman, speaking of her husband in verse 23, it says, "Her husband is known in the gates when he sitteth among the elders of the land. You will always see kings sitting in the company of other kings. Number four. You will be able to identify a king, number four, by his financial philosophies. Now this is good for ladies as well, because you need to jot these things down. These are some of the things you need to search for in a man. You will be able to identify him by his financial philosophies. Because kings have very particular thoughts about money. They have very particular thoughts about making money. Kings have very particular thoughts about managing money. And kings have very particular thoughts about multiplying money. If you look in Proverbs 21 and 20, it says, there's treasure to be desired and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man spendeth it up. When you come into a king consciousness, you develop a different relationship with money. Because as a king, you begin to understand that your financial decisions determine the well-being of the kingdom, the wife, the kids, the aging mother. And so where an average man will take a stimulus check and go and spend it up on rims, kings put it away for a rainy day. And the Bible says there's treasure to be desired and all in the dwelling of the wise. Kings are wise, but a foolish man spendeth it up. A foolish man will put it all around his neck, wear it all. And I used to be young and foolish like that. I got so much jewelry, man. I got diamond rings and I got big old diamond crosses and all of that kind of thing from my youth. But when I grew up, Paul said, when I was a child, I spake and behaved like a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. You can identify a king by his financial philosophies. See, now let me just speak directly to the sisters right here. If you find a man that does not want a job, he's what you call a bum. Yeah, period. Does not want a job, will lay down and make babies, won't get a job to take care of them, lay up on a woman, let her go and earn. He just sitting there. He's a bum. He's a bum. Now you got another brother that's just broke. But I heard one of the daughters of the ministry say, she's popular on Instagram. She said broke is temporary, which is true. Because broke can be changed. You can't really change a bum, because a bum, that speaks to his character. Broke may just speak to his socioeconomic positioning right now. A woman sometimes can help broke, but she can't do nothing with bum. And so when you find a king, he has very specific financial philosophies. Number one, a king wants to be the earner in his house. He's not going to prevent his woman from following her dreams and, doing her thing and maximizing herself financially. But in the mind of a king, he wants to take care of his woman. It doesn't matter how much money she has. A king wants to take care of his woman. A king is not going to make a baby he does not finance. He ain't going to do it. He's not going to do it. I said he's just not going to do it. A king will work 3 jobs to make certain that his house is taken care of, that his babies are fed, and that his babies have everything they need, because he has certain financial philosophies. Kings are even thinking about, watch this, financing their families after they're gone. So kings search out stuff like insurance policies, investments, rental properties. because kings have very specific financial philosophies. If you meet a man and he can't articulate a financial vision. Number five, his patience. You can identify a king by his patience and his tenderness with his woman. Kings are not aggressive towards their queens. A king will cut another person's head off about his queen. But kings are never aggressive towards their queens. If a man is aggressive towards his woman, he's feminized. It's like a woman. It's a cat fight. Any man that would put his hands on a woman or get aggressive with a woman is in his subconscious mind is a woman himself. Girls fight girls. Kings protect girls. Kings protect queens, and they're patient with their women. Listen to what the Bible says in Ephesians 5:25 through 28. It says, "Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle, any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself." He says, husbands, love your wives as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, sacrificed himself for it. And in Colossians 3:19 says, "Husbands, love your wives and be not bitter against them." Kings are very patient and very gentle with their queens. All right, number 6. You can identify a king by his vision for the future. Kings lead from the future. While average men just kind of reacting to the moment, kings are way ahead. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. And it spills out of our previous point about kings' financial philosophies. Kings don't know that COVID-19 coming. Kings don't know that. But kings prepare for COVID-19 2020. Kings start preparing for COVID-19 in 2020 in 2010. So when COVID-19 unexpectedly shows up in 2020, kings are ready even though it caught them unawares. A man that's less than a king has made such horrific choices that he and his family now are victimized by the moment because the king did not have a vision for the future. Kings live they lead and live from the future. You catch a man thinking real hard. This is for you ladies. You got a man that's intellectually deep. He's thinking real hard. And he say something to you like, just follow me on this. Follow him on that. He's seeing something in the future. Support him on that. Stand behind him on that, because kings have a vision for the future. And the Bible says, watch this in Proverbs 13:22, "A good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children." A good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children. Why? Because kings have a vision for the future. Where are you going? Everything that me and my wife Lisa are experiencing now, we talked about it years ago. She always knew I had a vision. I think that's why she loved me so much, because I give her a life of excitement. I'm always into something. I'm always moving to the next level. I'm always, it doesn't matter what comes at us. It doesn't matter how difficult it is. We always find a way because we have a vision. We live from the future. I lead from the future. I see where we're going. And the Bible says where there's no vision, the people perish. And then number seven, and I'm done. You can identify a king by his strength to protect. Kings cover and kings protect their own. Kings don't leave their women out there, fighting battles by themselves. Kings don't leave their children to be victimized by the streets. Kings protect. Kings have a strength, and kings have a desire, an insatiable desire to protect their own. A king protects his own. And the Bible says in Mark 3:27, no man can enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he will first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his goods. Well, the king is the strong man of the house. Yeah. And kings protect and cover. Kings will take the bullet because it is the nature of a king to protect his own. Now, we're going to go deeper into these conversations. I'm actually producing an online program to go along with Kingology. It will not be chapter for chapter with the book. It's going to extend the conversation into some of the other aspects of manhood that every man has to understand. So I'm going to approach it from the perspective of I'm sitting down and training a young man how to be a man. So I hope you got something out of this. 7 signs of a king. Now, if you don't mind, I'd love for you to go to my website, rcblakes.com, and subscribe to my email list. I need you on my email list. When I send out, I may very well take this very discussion today and put it in PDF form and send it to my email list, those that are in my email group. I want you to be on that list, Don't forget to stop by Amazon, pick up my books. Don't forget to go to rcblakes.com if you've not gotten my online programs, Queenology, Transcending the Father Wound, Soul Ties, Wisdom for Women in Ministry. You need to get that today. And just know that Lisa and I love you. We're always praying for you. And we're so grateful to have you in our family. We really, truly are. And so I think I'm done for today. I want you to know that I love you. I want you to have a great day. And remember that you're on top and you're going higher. If you need to reach out to me, you can reach me at Pastor R.C. Blakes at gmail.com. Pastor R.C. Blakes at gmail.com. Reach out to me. Make it short so I can read it. Make it short so I can read it. I love you. God bless you. I'll talk to you soon.